Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm Terry Price.
I am Harold Presley.
And you've tuned in to The Spook Show. We're so excited that you're here. We've got a great show in store for you today. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what, things have been going pretty good.
Going pretty good. We had the story up about the haunted house in Virginia there, and that's
Virginia,
been up, and that's been well listened to, and that was kind of spooky. That one kind of freaked me out. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. There's two parts to it. It was so much going on. We had to make two different shows.
At this point, we will have had the Bigfoot story.
Oh, we had the Bigfoot story. Yeah, that's right. Bigfoot. We had and that's your favorite. I know you love some Bigfoot, don't you?
You know, hey, it was good though. That was really good. His experiences that he had.
That was good. That was good.
Was pretty interesting. If you're into Bigfoot,
that's probably going to be the guest that you want on the show. You want an actual Bigfoot on the show.
If I could get him, you know,
make that happen. And again, this is our podcast, and we want you to check it out. You can check it out on YouTube. You got to set up on Podbean. That way, you can subscribe to that, and you get them all
for a small one-time fee.
One-time fee. You can get everything we do. It goes right up there as well. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube. You know, actually like our page and give us a like and give us a follow, and on Facebook as well.
That way you can be alerted to when a new episode drops.
Yes.
If you follow us on YouTube, then you'll get an alert saying, hey, the next episode of The Spook Show is dropping.
But by the way, we do love it when you send us stories. So be sure and email us. You can do it at pricepresleyshow@gmail.com. Just email it in. Don't think, oh, my story's stupid. No, there are no stupid stories. Right.
Yeah, we're still looking for stories on Ouija boards.
Yeah, I know you want to do the Ouija board thing.
Yeah. And speaking of sending in your stories to us on Gmail, if it's a good enough story, we may just have you come on and be a guest on the show. And speaking of which, one of our very first
people to send us an
email, people to send anything to us, we have as a guest today. Why don't you introduce?
Well, we've got Jen with us. I actually know Jen, and she's going to join us on the show today. Good. How you doing, Jen?
I am doing great.
Jen, what's your story now? You're not from here originally, right?
No. I grew up.
And I say, and for our listeners out there, I say here at the Bryan College Station area in Texas.
The house that I grew up in was, I don't know, I guess super popular in like the 70s. Like it had like all the yellow and green and stuff everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But, like,
I remember those
used to sit at, do you remember, I don't know what you call it. Like you have like a kind of bar or counter that jutted out. And then, like, you'd have, like, a little bar countertop that kind of go around.
You're talking about in the kitchen, the cabinet.
Like, in the
little
kitchen.
breakfast.
And it kind of like...
Yeah, breakfast bar. Yeah.
But, so I would sit there and eat breakfast and, you know, stuff whenever I was little. And so whenever this story happened, I was pretty young. And I don't actually remember how young I was.
We're talking single digits here?
Single digits at least.
All right.
Maybe 8, maybe 6. I don't know. But I remember I was sitting there at that little bar, whatnot thing. And my mom was just kind of going back and forth. We had a fairly big kitchen, like a long kitchen. And so just on the other side of the kitchen, there's like a utility room. It had like our pantry and a washer dryer, and it had 2 doors in there, one that went directly to the backyard that we like never used, and then another one that went into the garage, which is primarily how we came in and out of the house. So it was pretty common to have traffic, you know, in and out. So I'm sitting there just minding my own business. And my mom is, you know, fiddling with things and doing dishes. Something just caught my eye, and I looked up, and this man is walking in the kitchen, like from the utility room. And I was like, who the heck is that?
So did it scare you? Were you afraid? No, you weren't afraid at all.
No, but I just didn't recognize this man. And so I was like, but he was super chill.
Well, describe him to us. Tell us what he looked like.
So he was kind of tall. My dad's tall. He had very dark hair. It was like kind of like slicked over, combed really nice. He had a blue shirt, button-up shirt with long sleeves and a collar. I want to say it was like a blue jean shirt, but I don't think it was. But he did have like blue jeans on and like a belt. Everything was tucked in. Like he was very well kept.
Those are some vivid memories you have there.
Very specific.
I remember this. Yes.
Wow.
Like there's something about this whole thing like burned into my memory.
Wow.
And he just kind of walked in and he kind of looked at me and I looked at him and he just kind of like, like he was supposed to be there. And so I didn't say anything.
So you just assumed that he was supposed to be there. Your mom knew he was there. And so it just really didn't faze you that much.
It didn't faze me, but my mom just kept washing dishes and she's going back and forth. And I'm watching this guy at one point just kind of walk around the kitchen with her.
Okay.
And
so she didn't notice him at all.
She didn't notice him at all. And, I was just like watching this guy and I'm telling you, like at one point he just kind of walked right over to her and watched her over her shoulder.
Now, did he acknowledge you at all?
Whenever he first walked in, he looked at me and then he kind of glanced over at me while he was, watching my mom or whatever. And he kind of stood like right in the middle and just kind of like looked around like he was just taking everything in or something, Did
he look like he was lost or
no, he
not
was
familiar
just, like,
with
looking at stuff? And that's why, like, I remember feeling like, I don't know, like not like I had seen him before, but he just seemed familiar, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah.
So it didn't really seem like scary or anything like that. So he walked around the kitchen. I mean, it seemed like forever.
So,
but
let me ask you this: this house that y'all lived in, did somebody live in the house previous to you? To you guys?
I mean, probably.
I asked that because you never know what happened in the house before you.
Correct.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe they're still there somewhere.
Perhaps it had some extremely strong emotions that happened during its life.
And specifically in the kitchen, I guess.
In that place, specifically in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's drawn to that location each time. That's one of the theories,
And again, the fact that you weren't afraid or anything, you felt comfortable and you felt like a familiar feeling with him.
I didn't tell a lot of people this story because it sounds crazy, right? Whenever you're growing up and you hear about like ghosts and stuff, you think of like something you see through or something that scares you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like this wasn't somebody that I could see through. He wasn't like floating around.
Yeah. Well, that's a very common misconception. You're the third person we've spoken to on this podcast that has said the same exact thing, that they saw this entity and it looked just like you or I or anybody else.
Yeah, just like
a regular
solid,
person.
regular person.
The thing that I'm having difficulty with is I can't determine what type of haunting this, because he didn't really interact with any of you, did he?
Only with
he
her.
He just interacted with me.
With her.
Just by looking at you, though, right?
Yeah, just by looking, and then like whenever he finished his, observation, whatever it was, whenever he finally turned, he went back through that utility room.
Went back the way he came.
Yeah, but like as he left, he kind of turned and kind of like smiled and like half waved.
Really? So he did interact with you then?
Yeah. And then he left. I turned to my mom and I went, who was that guy? Who was that man that was just here? And she looks around like, I scared her. And she goes, what guy?
What guy?
Like, what man?
Wow.
And I described how he looked and what he was doing. He was doing this and he was following you around. And she was just like, there was nobody here. And then I'm like, no, there was somebody, like, this is what he looked like. And he came through the back door. She was like, oh, maybe that was an angel. And like, we talk about that, like it was just an angel visiting. And I don't know.
An angel. Well, that's definitely, it's just as good an explanation as anything else.
And Terry, you talked about this before. You say children,
Children do have a tendency to be more open
to this sort of thing.
And perceptive in these cases than adults, because by the time that we become adults, we've shut down that part of our imagination, that part of our brain.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're not open to, and in fact, adults will do everything they can to deny
what they saw.
That they saw.
I didn't see that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, just like if a giant, mutant rat ran through this room, you would try to deny that you saw.
Come on, man, really? You got to bring up rats on the show.
Well, I'm just trying to give an example.
No,
here,
we don't need to be talking about rats, okay? We're talking about Jen's the guest. We'll talk about what she wants to talk about. No rats.
But seriously though, animals as well. We've talked about animals
Yes.
being perceptive to that sort of thing.
Not rats.
A very good friend of the family used to babysit for my daughter, and that house, she's lived in that house for a very, very long time, and she's had other people tell her that they've actually seen people walking down the hallway at that house. But my granddaughter used to sit there when she was babysitting her, and she'd look down the hallway, and the lady would look at Ava and go, "What, do you see something, Ava?" And Ava was probably 2-3 years old at the time, and all Ava would do is take her index finger and put it up against her lips and go, "Shh." That's all she would do. She would.
Wow.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that because of your age, Jen, that you were just extremely perceptive to this. Because I don't believe some stranger just walked in off the street and followed your mom around and she didn't notice.
Right,
She didn't know it.
Right. Well, I mean, now that you say that, like, as an adult now, I kind of replay that every once in a while, and we never heard a door open.
Mm.
And we also had like a little bell, not a traditional doorbell that you push button, like a bell.
Just a tinkle
on
bell.
that door.
Right, yeah.
No.
To let you know something's there. Something,
No.
Yeah.
There's some movement.
There was no noise. There was no noise.
This is the first time in your memory that you've ever experienced anything like this.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I remember also when I was pretty young, after my grandfather had passed, I remember seeing him in the weeks after he died sitting in his recliner. And I was like, why does Pop up here?
You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I see dead people.
I see dead people.
Yeah, right?
Thank you.
Great movie, by the way.
That is a great movie.
Well, I'll tell you, Jen, you didn't have any sense of dread. You weren't frightened by this person. I mean, your mom said that it could have been an angel. You know, if you believe in angels, then that's just as good an explanation as anything else, because we really have no idea what these paranormal experiences that people have really are. I mean, if you listen to the Portsmouth House episodes, they had lots of different things going on, lots of what they believed were different entities and of varying degrees of anger and non-anger, this one's, at first it sounded very much like a residual haunting, like, a residual haunting is where
what's that?
It's like a videotape and it happens.
Right. Yeah.
Certain things cause it to happen and it just happens. And they do things that they were doing. It's like a recording, of what they were doing in life. However, those residual hauntings don't interact with anybody in the room. They just do they walk through things, people.
Do what they did.
Yeah. But this entity, whatever it was, actually turned and looked at her, smiled, and made a connection and waved when it left. So that tells me that it probably was not a residual haunting, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah. The other letter you sent us we were talking about something that happened when you were in college or something like that?
Yeah. When I was in college, we moved in to a little, it was technically a dorm, but it was more like a very small apartment. So there were 4 little bedrooms and then like a common living area, bathroom, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what that is. I lived in one of those.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
about. Yeah. And then it had like a little kitchen, barely a kitchen.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, it was like a little closet. And it had a window. So that's good. But, so like it had like a little sink, little double sink, a little section of counter.
Sounds like a kitchenette.
Yeah, it was very, very tiny. Like you could really only fit like one person in there at a time. It was very tight. To see in there, you had to actually kind of step in there. We had 2 bedrooms on each side. So it was like a perfect little square, right?
Oh, okay, so this is a galley kitchen we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the room that I stayed in was like, when you walked in, it'd be like to the left in the first room. And then my friend, we'll call her Elle, was right next to me. And so we were like on the side where the bathroom kind of was, like not closest to the kitchen. And then our 2 roommates were basketball players, but they were gone a lot, either like doing other things. One of them had a boyfriend, they were gone a lot for like away games and stuff like that. We noticed like weird things going on in our apartment.
Weird like what?
Weird, like very small things. Like one day, all the cushions on the couch were like on the floor, like the little pillows were on the couch, like were on the floor. I mean, and you know, like there's 4 of us. We all have different schedules, so we just kind of like copped it up to like somebody just put them on the floor, you know. But then after a while, whenever we were like all together, we'd like start talking about things, or we'd mention like, oh yeah, where the heck is the remote? Oh, it's all the way underneath the couch. How the heck did it get under there? Like all of us have been gone. And so like weird things would just be moved around. What actually made us bring it up is because I used to keep soda bottles. You remember the Jones soda bottles? And they used to have like little pictures and stuff. I had like a whole collection on my windowsill, right?
Yeah, I've seen those before. Yeah, what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so I had them like all of them. One of those things had moved from the group of the collection and had moved to the other side of the windowsill. And I was like, did y'all go into my room? I'm just wanting to know like who moved my bottles around. And they were like, we have not gone in your room yet.
Now, do you think, just to be devil's advocate here, now, do you think maybe one of them did do it? They just didn't want to admit it? They just said, okay, I'm not going to admit it?
I usually had my room locked.
Ah, okay.
Usually. I mean, I'm sure there's a possibility I didn't, but you know, we were all kind of like in and out.
Question would be why? And unless they were trying to scare her.
Yeah. Well, okay. What also happened was one of the roommates, I can't remember which one, lost like a little bracelet of hers.
Yeah.
And it had been missing for like a month or something like that.
Yeah.
And one day, like one of us just went into the bathroom and it was just like sitting on the floor in the bathroom. If somebody was trying to prank us, like they were very
stupid pranks,
very organized. Yes.
See, I'm the kind of guy, I always try to, I mean, I'm that guy that tries to, there's a reason for this. There's a rational reason for this.
Yeah.
If I were trying to scare you, Harold.
Oh, I know what you would do. I mean,
it would be very obvious that I was trying to scare you.
Okay, this is Terry. You know like posting a picture of a deadly looking menacing rat on our podcast site. Thanks.
Come on, man.
Come on.
So like a lot of the things were just like super insignificant, like small things were like, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it probably just somebody, you know, whatever. One of my roommates, I wasn't there when this happened. They were just sitting in the living room and like the TV like turned on by itself. And she was like, that's weird.
We've talked about this on shows before. That can happen because I think somebody said that there was somebody, a neighbor. It was some kind of frequency. Yeah, it was you. And it just
they had the same TV and
the
remote.
Same TV and remote. Yeah. They did, and it just hit right, and they could turn yours on and off.
Yeah,
exactly. And the building was pretty old, and like.
When you're dealing with electronics, it's just really hard to say.
And so it was just kind of easy to go like, well, that was kind of weird. I don't know.
It is weird. It is weird.
So it's a lot of.
All just kind of like continue on with our day, right?
Okay. So it's a lot of little things like this.
A lot of little things
like this,
and
this one
been going on.
All these little things culminated in a big thing, right?
A big thing that happened. Yeah.
So this one afternoon, I mean, it was during the day, and I was in my room. I had my door closed, had music on. I was writing a term paper or something, sitting at my computer, and my friend Elle, like right next door to me, was also in her room. Our roommates were gone. Like they had an away game, and they were gone for like a couple of days already. Okay. I think we're just, we're in our room, and I start to hear what sounds like silverware, maybe a drawer, like just like movement going on in the kitchen.
Somebody rummaging around in the kitchen.
Yeah, okay. Like I hear like some, clatter. I hear like, it sounds like silverware or something in the sink, something like that.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just gonna go see what Elle's doing, because who else would be in the kitchen? And so I opened my door, and at that same moment, Elle opens her door.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
It's not her, unless she's super fast.
We both just stare at each other, and her mouth kind of opens, and she goes, "That's not you, isn't it?" And then we just kind of stare, and then she goes, "Do you think that they're back?" Talking about her roommates. I thought they were coming back tomorrow, and I was like, I don't know. And then she goes, "I want to go see who it is." And I'm like, okay.
In a horror movie, that's the famous last word.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we legit thought that like it was probably one of our roommates.
Yeah,
I mean, but they weren't supposed to be there.
Well, they could have gotten back early. Yeah.
But she, it's a possibility, right? So I kind of like step into the living room, I guess, to give her support. But like I immediately felt like I'm not looking around there. I'm not going. You can go. That's fine.
Oh, I would have went.
Yeah, Jen is me. That's me. That's my. No, Terry, you
like,
go ahead on, man.
I'd have been in the middle of that place.
You go ahead on. Look.
And then she kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go see. And she kind of like slowly goes to walk, and right as she goes, she takes like a half step to kind of peek in there to go see.
Yeah.
We started to hear water running. It sounded like someone was washing dishes, like somebody was in there, right?
Yeah.
So she goes and she takes like another like half step, and then she kind of looks at me, and I'm like, just like, who is it? And then she goes and like kind of grabs on the wall and peeks in there, and all the sounds stop. Okay. And then like I remember watching her back just like stiffen, and then she just like turned on her heels. Her eyes were so big. And she just hauls ass back into her room.
Okay.
Nobody's in there. And I was like, and I ran into my room. I shut the door. I locked it. Like that's gonna keep a ghost out, right? Yeah, we didn't leave our room.
So you didn't see anything yet. She saw everything. You just going on her movement and say, "Oh no, I'm going back too." Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I mean, her eyes were so big.
Yeah.
She was like, there's nobody there. But like, we didn't hear any more sounds after that. The next day, we hear our roommates come back. It was like the next evening. It was kind of late. And so like, we hear them, and I was like, we got to go tell them what happened. And so like, they're trying to like unpack and stuff. So we're telling him the whole story. And then like after that, like one of my roommates, I swear, like she was hardly ever in the apartment after that.
Okay.
She was like always gone. Like, I'm just gonna go, like I have plans. Like, she was hardly ever back in that apartment after that happened.
Wow.
So did you ever go look in the kitchen yourself and see anything?
No. No,
but you had been in the kitchen after that at some point.
Yeah.
At this point in your life, had you had, other than the guy that walked into your kitchen, speaking of, he was in the kitchen. Let's draw a correlation between those two events.
The kitchen and paranormal events, and you.
Yeah. You had other experiences between these two events, correct?
Yeah.
I've got a slight hypothesis here. All right. Okay. And let me try it on you guys and see what you think.
All right.
The first one happened in the kitchen, and he wandered around. He was following your mother, watching what she was doing, checking out the whole situation in the area. Mm-hmm. But he knew that you had seen him. He knew that you were watching him, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, as you grew older and were in college, you hadn't seen this guy ever again, correct?
I saw him one other time.
Whoa.
But he was not in my house. I was in the backyard, and I saw he was dressed exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. This is the backyard of your house you grew up in?
Of my house, okay. Yes. He was walking around, like from our house. We had a huge yard. From our property onto our neighbor's property. Mm-hmm. And he was just kind of walking. And I don't remember him looking at me or anything, but it was just like he was just strolling, just walking.
Just strolling in the backyard.
Just strolling around, and he was dressed exactly the same. And that's why I remembered, because he was wearing the same thing. Looked exactly the same.
And again, you weren't scared. You didn't have a sense of fear or anything like that.
But I was excited.
Back to my hypothesis.
Okay.
Right.
So as a young adult in college, you had not seen him again, correct?
No. That was the last time I saw him, was in the yard.
Okay. All right. Now, we had talked about children being perceptive to these things, and as you grow older and become an adult,
You become less,
you become less perceptive.
and open to that kind of thing.
Now, this is a theory of other folks, and I'm just relaying the theory. I don't necessarily subscribe to this theory, although it does sound plausible.
Right.
She could no longer see him, and if he were following her, if he was attached to her,
Yeah.
because he knew that she could see him, maybe the noise in the kitchen was him, after all, trying to get her
Trying to get her attention.
to pay attention to him.
Maybe.
I hadn't thought about that.
That's just a hypothesis.
Well,
but,
okay. All right. All right.
know.
All right. And if you had gone to the kitchen, you might have seen him because you were the one he was wanting to see him. And that's why your roommate didn't see anything.
That's correct.
If that's the case.
From everything that I'm hearing, it sounds plausible.
Yeah.
It sounds plausible that this entity could be attached to her in some reason, maybe because the entity knew that she could see it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
therefore, it was trying to get her attention. Maybe it needed her to do something for him, or it wanted to relay some message to her or something like that. And she was no longer in a position to where she could actually see it as she did when she was a
When
child.
she was a child. Okay. So
Just
there
a
you
thought.
go.
Just a thought.
Maybe.
Nope.
It's possible.
There'll be no charge for this session, Jen, at all. We're just here to help. That's what we do. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Most of the time, I get the sense that they just want me to know that they're there, which kind of gave me that sort of sense with the apartment thing that we were just talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I think whoever it was just wanted us to know they were there.
Yeah.
Because I had some similar things happen in my other dorm that I lived in before, where stuff would just kind of move around.
Yeah.
But nothing creepy.
This is the dorm you were just talking about where you had the suite mate, right? And you shared the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like what happened there? Made you think somebody was
I-
trying to get your attention? Something or somebody?
I had a stereo that would turn on and off. It would also change stations. The volume would turn up and down on its own if I was already had it on. Computer monitor would turn on in the middle of the night. I would feel like sometimes it would feel like something was sitting on the bed with me.
Wait.
Which was really
Okay.
uncomfortable.
Let's stop and talk
You've
about
talked
that.
about that before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you've got my attention now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell
So,
us about that.
I mean, it wasn't. This is one of my not very interesting stories though, because it just happened one time where I was like, is something is you know how your covers kind of shift
Yes.
Oh yeah.
when you have that pressure? That's just kind of was. And so I sat up and I didn't feel it anymore. Didn't see anything.
Did you ever happen to be laying in bed at night and hear a sigh or a whisper or anything like that close to your head?
I don't remember. I don't remember that. And nothing
Okay.
stands out.
Well, you would
that.
remember
It's
if it
just
happened.
Yeah.
There'd be,
Something.
there'd be
right,
no
yeah.
doubt in your
Just
mind.
whispering, you're like,
But
The reason, again, fits into my hypothesis, but it sounds to me very much like whatever this entity was, starting back at your early childhood, was attached to you. And the fact that you felt something sit down on your bed while you were sleeping tells me it would be very, very unusual for you to go from one haunted location to another haunted location to another haunted location.
yeah.
right.
The odds of that are pretty slim, unless you have a knack for picking out old haunted houses. If you boil it down to the simplest explanation, that if there is an entity, and we're assuming that there is because we trust you, that whatever it is attached to you, and apparently has at least a small interest in your welfare, or at least a small interest in being recognized by you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Because that sitting down on the bed thing, even in a haunted house, that's not something that happens quite often.
Yeah, I think I kind of wrote it off because that dorm building was even older. I don't even think it's standing anymore.
Yeah, but old does not equate to haunted.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Yes, you're right.
So
I think I just kind of chalked it up to
I would look back in your history as much as if you haven't already, Jen, and see if you can ever find anybody that's related to your family, either a part of the family or a friend of the family or something that even comes close to matching the description of this guy you saw.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I had described that guy the same way every time, and it never really
Registered with
rings
anybody?
any. Yeah,
With anybody.
but he kind of reminded me of how my dad kind of dressed.
Yeah, I thought that was
I
familiar.
think that's why he seemed
I thought that was
so
interesting.
familiar.
I thought that was interesting what you said when you first started off. You said that he dressed like your dad, and you had a familiar feeling to him. So it could be something on your dad's side. Jen, have you had anything lately that's happened, to you?
Yeah, but not. I'm not really ready to talk about it right now.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
I do have.
Now that makes me want to know even more.
I know.
One day.
We'll talk later.
We'll
talk later.
Yeah, after some time. Yeah, call me later.
Okay. We'll talk later. Yeah.
I do have a couple stories just for you.
Well,
for
we got?
both of you. But okay, so it involves a place that we're mutually acquainted with here in Bryan College Station.
Okay.
So it's pretty recent. So in downtown Bryan, there is a local community theater.
Yes.
But we used to be located in a different location than we are now.
Third floor cantina.
Like
yeah, we
we've talked about that on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had somebody else talk about third floor cantina before.
Okay, cool. So I've had a couple of experiences there. So whenever we were actually in a production together, Harold.
I think I remember this. I do remember this kind of.
Okay, so after a particularly frustrating rehearsal, I was assistant directing at the time. So I was assistant directing for a time, and we were like super frustrated after rehearsal, and so we're just kind of talking and we're venting and we're sipping on like Moscato or something. I don't know. It wasn't very good. I could feel movements. The boards there. The boards there are they're the wood.
Yeah.
Kind of feel.
It's an old building. Yeah.
And I kept like hearing sort of squeaking, but like we're talking. And so I just kind of kept looking over my shoulder. And the only thing really behind me was the end where the kind of the box office counter was, if you remember, Harold. And then like there was a door that kind of went into that back. I was kind of standing in front of that. And so I just kept looking over my shoulder, and finally she goes like, "You're getting creeped out, huh?" And I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And so then we changed the subject. We talked about something else. And then I felt something walk right up behind me, and I felt the boards right behind my feet move. And I just like the hairs stood up on the back of my neck, and I slowly set my cup down. And I think she heard it too. She was like, "Okay, I've had enough. Let's go." We shut off the lights. We grabbed our stuff. We went out, and I did not turn around. I did not turn around to see anything because I felt it like the boards move. And I was like, oh my God, something's standing right freaking behind me.
And you were the only people there.
Well, we were the only people there. Everyone else had already left. So
I've heard stories like that in that place before.
That's the thing, that the place is spooky enough at night.
It is very spooky at night.
Especially if it's just one or two people in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And the building is old enough that
it makes noise.
We've talked about this before, that old buildings do actually move.
Yeah.
And they settle and move, especially if you put weight on one area that may cause another area to move. I'm not discounting your experience.
No, I get it.
Mainly because you felt like there was somebody standing right behind you.
The fact that she felt that kind of fear, she didn't, like, I could get out of here.
Now, had it been anybody just telling me that, I probably wouldn't pay that much attention to it. But you've actually seen things that most people don't see. Yeah. So that lends a little bit more credence to your feelings, because you can't quantify feelings, right? No. So, you saying, hey, I felt like there's somebody behind me. Well, that's all that we can take it for. Except that you have actually seen things that nobody else has seen before. So that gives a little credence to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like I felt the little boards kind of creaking underneath my feet, how it does. And so that's what I was just like, there is somebody standing right behind me. And I was just like, if I turn around, I'm going to regret it.
That brings up a good point.
Don't look.
You remember that? Remember the prison guard captain that we spoke to?
Oh yeah, that's what I was exactly what I was thinking.
Same thing happened
when he was going
to him.
down the stairs and he didn't see anything. He just had overwhelming fear. So I'm not going any further.
He
That's it.
He couldn't. Take
he wouldn't even look through the window in the
right.
door
Yeah.
because he said I don't even want to look. You know, I just and it sounds like the same thing.
That sounds like a level of fear that just controls you.
Yeah.
And so that even lends a little bit more credence to what she's saying, is that she physically couldn't turn around and look.
But Jen, I got to tell you, this has been great. You've given us a bunch of great stories and stuff. We could keep talking forever, but our time is just about out. So I want to thank you for coming. We want to thank you for coming on the show and talking to us and sharing this with us. We appreciate that. And I know you got a lot more. So maybe some future date we might have you back on here again. Tell us some more stuff.
Yeah, when you get to the point to where you can talk about your most recent one,
yes,
that's the one I really want to hear now.
When you're ready to talk about that, we'll talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on. This is fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen, right there. And keep those letters coming in. If you got letters you want to send us like Jen did, you can do that at PressleyShow@gmail.com. We take your emails there. Any kind of thing, spookiness, Bigfoot stuff, UFOs, anything you want to send us.
Ouija boards.
Yeah.
We
Ouija
really want
boards.
Ouija board stories.
And the more detail, the better. Send those stories in. We like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. You know, click subscribe and like on the YouTube page there.
And don't forget to leave us comments, folks. When you listen to these shows, it's very important to us to get feedback from you. So comment in the comment sections of either YouTube or whatever platform you're listening to us on, because we're on several platforms, actually.
We have a link tree. You'll see the link tree. Open that up and it'll take you where you need to go.
And leave us, on Facebook. Talk to us. Yeah. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you like about the show. Tell us what you don't like so much about the show, because Harold and I, although we have several years in radio experience, we've never done a podcast before, so we're still learning about that. So be sure you leave us some kind of comment and talk to us. Let us know what's going on.
We like that. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition.
That's right. I'm Terry Price.
I am Harold Presley.
Don't get spooked.